Have you ever walked into a room and felt an unexplained shift? Like everyone's smiling, but something feels off? Maybe you've sensed people pulling away without knowing exactly why. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden behaviors secretly sabotaging your success and relationships. We'll expose those subtle, everyday mistakes like the toxic habit of gossip, sneaky passive aggression, or even seemingly harmless things like chronic lateness that make people quietly lose respect for you. But here's the real game changer. I'm going to reveal the single most surprising reason why these behaviors are so hard to shake, and how turning them around could unlock a whole new level of happiness and genuine connection in your life. Ready for an eye-opening ride that promises some tough truths and powerful solutions? Stick with me until the very end, because the final insight might just transform the way you see yourself forever. And if you love real talk content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It helps support our channel to keep delivering life-changing scripts and discussions. In life, it's easy to overlook the small behaviors that slowly chip away at our personal relationships, professional connections, and even our self-esteem. Often, we focus on the big actions we take, completing major projects at work, making grand gestures for our loved ones, or hitting personal milestones like buying a new home. Yet, it's often the subtle daily habits that create our overall reputation. These habits, whether we notice them or not, can inspire admiration when they're positive, or breed resentment when they're negative. When someone walks into a room, they carry a silent aura that represents all the day-to-day behaviors they've accumulated over time. If these behaviors are predominantly respectful, considerate, and empathetic, the person tends to be warmly received. Conversely, if they're known for negativity, passive aggression, or irresponsible tendencies, they might be met with hesitation or outright avoidance. It might sound harsh, but human beings are wired to make quick judgments based on the patterns we observe in others. This dynamic becomes especially clear when people start quietly distancing themselves. At times, you might walk into a meeting and notice a coworker rolling their eyes before you've even said a word. Or maybe you arrive at a friend's get-together, and everyone falls silent for a moment, as if bracing for something you're about to say or do. If you've ever had that uneasy feeling that you're not quite welcome, it could be that certain repetitive actions, whether you realize it or not, have given you a reputation. These are the hidden signals we send out to people, the remarks we make behind someone's back, the way we shrug off blame when things go wrong, or the subtle digs we sneak into conversations. The key here is understanding that these negative habits are rarely malicious in intent, at least not consciously. Most of us don't wake up one morning and decide, I'm going to become the office gossip, or I'd love to be known as the person who never showers. Yet, life pressures, emotional baggage, and plain old lack of self-awareness can gradually push us in that direction. The common denominator is that these habits create distance between us and the people around us. They're often ways of coping with deeper issues, feelings of insecurity, fear of conflict, or a need for acceptance. Unfortunately, while they might offer temporary relief or a sense of control, they have long-term negative repercussions. By shining a spotlight on these issues, gossiping, passive aggression, failure to take responsibility, poor hygiene, constant complaining, lateness, and playing the victim, we're giving ourselves a chance to see the unvarnished truth. Each one will be dissected, not just to point fingers, but to offer insight into how we can turn these bad habits around. We'll explore why they happen, how they affect us, and, more importantly, how they affect the people in our orbit. In doing so, we gain the power to reclaim healthy relationships both with ourselves and with those we value. In this first section, we'll tackle 3 especially prevalent issues: gossiping, passive aggressiveness, and the refusal to take responsibility. Each one can severely impact the way people see us. Even if we think we're being clever or harmless, those on the receiving end might feel otherwise. We'll dive deep into why gossiping seems so addictive, the emotional games behind passive aggression, and how refusing to accept responsibility damages our personal growth. By digging into these patterns, we start to uncover not just the what, but the why. When we understand the underlying reasons for our behavior, we can make lasting changes, if we dare to confront our own flaws. Ultimately, the purpose here isn't to shame you or anyone else into perfect behavior. After all, perfection is a myth, and every human being has flaws. Instead, the goal is to foster a space where we can acknowledge these flaws, hold ourselves accountable, and do the personal work needed to break free from destructive cycles. So let's begin this journey by taking a close look at gossiping, that timeless social glue, or social poison depending on how it's used, and uncover how this seemingly innocent pastime can drive a wedge between us and the respect we desperately crave. Gossip is as old as human civilization itself. In fact, anthropologists suggest that gossip, or talking about others, is deeply embedded in our social DNA. Historically, discussing the activities of tribe members could serve a useful function, such as warning others about potential threats or discovering who might be untrustworthy. Fast forward to the modern day and the lines have blurred. Sometimes what starts as a shared update about someone's life quickly morphs into a critical dissection of their choices, appearance, or character. Often, we don't realize we've moved from benign conversation into harmful gossip territory until it's too late. The allure of gossip can be strong. It feels like a form of currency, especially in workplace environments or tight-knit friend circles. Knowing the latest scoop can make you feel in the loop, providing a temporary sense of power or exclusivity. There's a quick hit of gratification when someone leans in and says, "You didn't hear this from me, but," and you realize you're about to receive insider information. This sense of excitement, however, is deceptive. Gossip, in reality, is a double-edged sword, offering a cheap thrill while harming trust in the long run. Consider the effect on relationships. When you share a juicy piece of information about a mutual acquaintance, coworkers or friends might be all ears in that moment, but you'd be surprised how many people immediately think, if they're willing to talk about this person's personal life so freely, what do they say about me when I'm not around? That lingering doubt is enough to make them hold you at arm's length. It might not happen immediately, but over time, people become cautious about sharing personal matters with you. They start engaging in small talk rather than meaningful dialogue, sensing that anything deeper could become fodder for the next gossip session. I learned this the hard way. In my own life, there was a period when I believed that sharing everyone's secrets made me the go-to fun friend. Little did I know that while people might have smiled and listened, they weren't necessarily trusting me more. In fact, I later found out that some colleagues and friends were grouping me under someone who can't keep things to themselves. That was an embarrassing discovery, but an important wake-up call. Gossip may appear to create a bonding experience, but it's bonding built on shaky ground, unsteady and unreliable. Another overlooked aspect is how gossip blinds us to our own issues. When the spotlight is constantly on other people's drama, we never have to examine what might be going wrong in our own lives. It's a sneaky form of distraction. Rather than dealing with the frustration we feel about our own career stagnation or personal insecurities, we channel that energy into discussing someone else's relationship breakdown or questionable life choice. This avoidance stalls personal development. When we're always pointing fingers outward, we conveniently sidestep the possibility that we have faults too, faults that might require more immediate attention. If you find yourself regularly falling into the gossip trap, consider pausing the next time you're about to divulge a friend's private matter or speculate on a colleague's personal decisions. Ask yourself, what's my motivation for sharing this? If the answer is simply to feel important or to entertain, then you're teetering on the edge of harmful gossip. Another strategy is to gently steer the conversation toward more constructive topics. Sure, it might not be as thrilling to discuss weekend plans or new hobbies, but the trade-off is clear. You preserve trust, cultivate deeper respect, and reduce the risk of being labeled a backstabber. In essence, gossip undermines both the gossiper and the gossiped about. It sows seeds of mistrust and can later bloom into full-blown social drama. The solution isn't to swear off discussing others entirely. After all, sharing social news is part of how humans connect, but to practice discernment. Know the difference between sharing information that someone has willingly made public and delving into personal territory that isn't yours to exploit. In the end, aiming for genuine, respectful connections will do more for your social circle than any short-lived thrill from malicious whispers. Changing a habit as ingrained as gossiping can be daunting. After all, if you're used to quickly diving into the latest rumors or criticisms, it feels almost natural to keep that cycle going. The first step is acknowledging how automatic the behavior can be. Many times, we don't even realize we're gossiping because it happens in casual, everyday conversation, over coffee breaks, social media chats, or dinner gatherings. The ease with which gossip slides into our dialogue makes it even more important to train ourselves to be mindful of what we say and why we say it. One practical tip is to set a personal rule. If you're discussing someone who isn't present, ask yourself whether you'd comfortably say those same words directly to that person. If the answer is no, that's a sign you're veering into dangerous territory. This simple internal check can be surprisingly effective. It might feel awkward at first because you'll catch yourself in mid-sentence thinking, wait, I wouldn't actually tell that coworker that I think they're irresponsible. That moment of realization can help you either reframe your statement or halt the conversation altogether. Mindfulness is another tool. Mindfulness doesn't have to be limited to meditation or yoga sessions. It can be as simple as paying attention to how certain topics make you feel. Do you feel a rush of excitement when you're about to spill some juicy details? That surge often indicates we're seeking validation or entertainment rather than fostering genuine connection. Recognizing that thrill as a trigger can allow you to rechannel the energy. Instead of continuing the gossip, direct the conversation towards something productive. Ask the other person about their own life, goals, or challenges in a supportive way. It can dramatically shift the tone from snarky commentary to meaningful engagement. Accountability partners can also help. Confide in a close friend who values integrity and ask them to call you out gently if they notice you sliding into gossip. This requires trust because being corrected in the moment can sting. However, that immediate feedback is invaluable. It's like having a personal coach who helps you align with your aim of being more respectful and responsible in your communications. Over time, you'll internalize that voice and learn to correct yourself before the words spill out. Another angle is to examine what's driving your need to talk about others in the first place. Sometimes gossip is a manifestation of deeper insecurities. If you've had a rough week at work, or you feel overshadowed by more successful acquaintances, you might subconsciously try to pull them down to your level by spotlighting their failures or mocking their quirks. It's like an emotional seesaw. You think you elevate yourself by lowering someone else's status, but in reality, this never solves the root cause of the insecurity. Finally, when you do slip, and you will, because change takes time, acknowledge it and move on. You might say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that," or simply steer the discussion away without being too self-critical. The goal is progress, not perfection. Each time you resist the urge to gossip or correct yourself halfway through, you reinforce a healthier pattern. Over time, gossip loses its hold, and you'll find you no longer crave that fleeting thrill of being in the know because you've replaced it with genuine self-respect and deeper bonds with others. By implementing these strategies consistently, you'll begin to see tangible changes in how people respond to you. The initial awkwardness is worth the payoff, As you become known as someone who doesn't engage in backstabbing chatter, people will respect your discretion. Friends might open up more, colleagues could trust you with important projects, and even casual acquaintances might value your presence more. It's a subtle yet powerful transformation, one that can ripple through various areas of your life. Shifting gears, let's talk about passive aggression, a communication style that often flies under the radar because it avoids direct conflict. On the surface, passive-aggressive behavior can look like calm acceptance or a refusal to rock the boat. But beneath that outward composure, strong feelings of resentment, anger, or frustration can simmer. Rather than expressing these emotions plainly, a passive-aggressive individual might engage in subtle digs, sarcastic remarks, or thinly veiled hostility. The hallmark of passive aggression is the phrase, "I'm fine," delivered with a tone of finality that is anything but fine. The tension in the air is palpable, and the other person is left guessing what the real story is. This guessing game can be emotionally draining, not just for the person on the receiving end of the passive aggression, but also for the passive-aggressive individual themselves. Why? Because it requires constant mental gymnastics to maintain a facade of calm indifference while harboring deep displeasure. Over time, this can erode trust and respect in relationships, whether personal or professional. I once had a coworker who would never directly say they disagreed with a project direction. Instead, they'd offer backhanded compliments like, "Oh, I guess we're just ignoring best practices now," or they'd forget to complete tasks they found distasteful. Confronting them was tricky because they'd act shocked that anyone assumed they were upset. This pattern created a toxic team environment. Productivity suffered because we had to constantly decode their mixed messages. Eventually, our manager had a private talk with them, explaining that the energy they spent masking their frustration would be better spent addressing it openly. It was a rough conversation, but ultimately beneficial for everyone involved. Passive aggression often stems from a fear of direct confrontation or a belief that openly discussing negative feelings is impolite, dangerous, or too vulnerable. Rather than venturing into honest but uncomfortable territory, the passive-aggressive person chooses oblique methods. They might dole out subtle forms of punishment like the silent treatment, or make snide remarks disguised as humor. The short-term result might feel safer. No heated arguments, no public scenes. However, the long-term impact is a buildup of unresolved tension. Another layer to consider is self-sabotage. Sometimes passive-aggressive people sabotage their own opportunities. They may show up late to an important presentation as a way of getting back at their boss, or might deliberately do a poor job on a task because they resent being assigned that work. This self-sabotage is a form of controlling the narrative. Instead of saying, "I don't want to do this," they express their discontent in roundabout ways that can be plausibly denied if questioned. Yet, such choices rarely bring genuine relief. They often lead to missed chances and tarnished reputations. To address passive aggression, both sides have a role to play. If you suspect you're displaying passive-aggressive tendencies, start by asking yourself what you're truly feeling. Pinpointing that raw emotion, whether it's anger, disappointment, or envy, can be a revealing first step. From there, practice articulating these emotions in a more straightforward manner. Admittedly, saying something like, "I'm upset you didn't consult me on that decision," feels vulnerable at first. But vulnerability often paves the way for resolutions and deeper trust. If you're dealing with someone else's passive aggression, invite them, kindly but firmly, to express their concerns openly. For example, "I sense you might be uncomfortable with the project. Would you like to talk about what's bothering you?" The goal is to create a space where they feel safe being direct. Of course, not everyone will respond positively right away. Some might double down on their behavior or deny everything, but persistently fostering an environment of open communication can gradually shift the dynamic. Ultimately, confronting passive aggression, whether it's your own or someone else's, requires courage, empathy, and patience. But the payoff is well worth it. When people learn to say what they mean without fear of backlash or judgment, relationships flourish. A team works more cohesively, friendships become deeper, and romantic relationships gain a sense of security because both parties trust that issues will be addressed head-on, not buried under layers of subtle hostility. If you recognize passive-aggressive tendencies in yourself, it's important to note that nobody wakes up saying, "I'd love to be cryptic and manipulative today." Often, this behavior is a learned response, possibly from growing up in an environment where direct expressions of anger or disagreement were met with punishment or ridicule. It's also common in workplaces where the culture discourages open conflict, pushing employees to find covert ways of expressing dissent. The good news is that changing this habit is absolutely possible. One step is to challenge your assumptions about conflict. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that conflict is inherently bad or dangerous, so we skirt around it. But conflict can be productive. It's through conflict that teams innovate and relationships grow stronger. If you're upset about a friend's remark or a decision at work, expressing it openly might feel uncomfortable in the short term, but it provides clarity, and clarity is the backbone of healthy relationships. Another technique is to rehearse direct communication in a safe space. This might involve writing down what you'd like to say in a journal or practicing with a trusted friend. For instance, if you're upset that your roommate consistently leaves dirty dishes in the sink, you might rehearse saying, "Hey, it's frustrating when the dishes pile up. Could we decide on a schedule for cleaning them?" This direct approach might still feel jarring if you're used to muttering sarcastic remarks like, "So, you're collecting dishes as a new hobby?" But it's far more likely to yield real solutions. Mindful breathing can also help you manage the stress that comes with direct confrontation. Before you address an issue, take a few slow, deep breaths to center yourself. This calms your nervous system and helps prevent that fight-or-flight adrenaline rush. When you're calm, you're more likely to express yourself clearly rather than resorting to veiled insults or the silent treatment. Over time, this practice trains your brain to associate open communication with calmness rather than high-stakes anxiety. On the flip side, if you're managing someone who exhibits passive-aggressive behavior, consistency is key. Encourage open dialogue, and when you notice subtle jabs or veiled comments, calmly address them. You might say, "I sense there's an underlying issue here. Would you like to talk about it directly?" It's crucial to remain empathetic but firm. Empathy shows you care about their perspective, while firmness sets the boundary that passive-aggressive comments won't be glossed over. At a deeper level, transforming passive aggression often involves self-reflection on why direct expression feels risky. Is it fear of rejection? Fear of losing control? Identifying that core fear can help you tackle the root cause rather than just the symptoms. Therapy or counseling can be invaluable for individuals who find themselves stuck in a passive-aggressive cycle that's deeply woven into their personality or coping mechanism. Finally, be prepared for setbacks. Changing a long-standing pattern isn't a one-and-done event. You might slip back into old habits the next time you feel cornered or upset. What matters is that you catch yourself, acknowledge the relapse, and course correct. Over time, your new, more direct communication style will become second nature. The payoff is a sense of freedom. You no longer have to choreograph every word or action to hide how you really feel. You'll be aligned internally, and people around you will sense that authentic congruence. Breaking free from passive aggression can dramatically improve your relationships, from romantic partnerships to friendships to professional collaborations. When people trust that you mean what you say, they're more likely to engage with you in fruitful, open exchanges. Even disagreements become opportunities for understanding, rather than minefields to tiptoe around. Ultimately, embracing direct honesty, tempered with respect, is a hallmark of emotional maturity, paving the way for deeper connections and a healthier social ecosystem. Almost everyone hates admitting they're wrong or that they've made a mistake. It's an uncomfortable moment that can trigger feelings of shame, insecurity, or fear of repercussions. However, there's a monumental difference between occasionally making excuses and establishing a full-blown pattern of blame shifting. When someone consistently refuses to take responsibility, they're effectively saying, "I cannot or will not learn from my errors." In personal relationships, this can manifest in subtle yet destructive ways. For example, let's say you forget an important anniversary or you fail to follow through on a promise. Rather than apologizing and making it right, you might say, "Well, you never reminded me," or "I had too much on my plate, it's not my fault." Initially, this can save face, making you look less negligent in the moment, but over time, loved ones realize that no matter the situation, you'll never own up to your part. This erodes trust and emotional intimacy. In a professional setting, persistent blame shifting can be equally toxic. Imagine a coworker who always has a built-in excuse for missed deadlines, technical glitches, uncooperative teammates, or unfair expectations from the boss. Once in a while, these excuses might be valid, but if it becomes a pattern, coworkers grow resentful, and supervisors lose confidence in that individual's ability to perform reliably. A reputation for dodging accountability can stall career growth faster than almost any other behavior, because organizations value problem solvers who learn from mistakes, not those who perpetually point fingers. The psychology behind blame shifting often includes a deep-seated fear of failure. Owning up to a mistake requires acknowledging that you fell short in some way. Maybe you miscalculated, lacked the necessary skills, or simply got lazy. That admission can feel like a threat to your self-image. But ironically, refusing to own up to mistakes anchors you even more firmly in them. You don't get to grow because growth demands reflection and adjustment. If you never admit you messed up, you'll never adapt, and thus you remain stuck. Culturally, some environments place an excessive premium on looking good rather than learning well. In such places, people might be even more tempted to dodge blame to protect their image. However, this can create a toxic culture where mistakes are hidden, lessons are never properly learned, and trust deteriorates. On a personal level, if you're consistently externalizing blame, you may feel chronically powerless. Everything bad happens to me, and I can't fix it. This is the antithesis of empowerment. It keeps you in a perpetual state of feeling done to rather than doing. A pivotal moment in my own journey with taking responsibility came during an academic setting. I missed a crucial paper deadline, and my first instinct was to claim I wasn't given the correct information. The professor calmly refuted my claim, showing me the course syllabus that clearly stated the due date. Rather than punishing me harshly, she talked about how valuable it can be to simply say, "Yes, I slipped up. How do I make this right?" That conversation, though initially embarrassing, was a revelation. Owning the error allowed me to focus on how to rectify the situation rather than wasting energy crafting more excuses. The truth is, people are often more forgiving than we expect when they see genuine accountability. Taking responsibility doesn't mean we have to grovel or label ourselves failures. It means we're mature enough to say, "I made a mistake and I'm learning from it." This shift in mindset can yield profound benefits in every aspect of life. You gain respect for your honesty, people trust you more, and you equip yourself with the clarity needed to make real improvements. Being responsible is not the same as being perfect. It's about being resilient and open to growth, even when the process stings. Implementing accountability can feel like a tall order, especially if you've grown comfortable with deflecting blame. The first step is building greater self-awareness. Practice pausing whenever you sense your defensive reflex kicking in. In that split second, ask, "Am I actually at fault here? If so, what can I do better next time?" This mental pause can redirect your energy from excuse-making to problem-solving. For instance, if you show up late to a meeting and your immediate urge is to blame the traffic, take a breath. Could you have left earlier? Did you misjudge the route? Owning it might look like saying, "I apologize for the delay, I should have planned more carefully." Setting clear, measurable goals can also bolster your sense of responsibility. When goals are nebulous, it's easy to sidestep accountability by claiming confusion or lack of direction. But if your target is explicit, submit this report by Thursday 5 p.m. or run 3 miles twice a week, you'll quickly see if you've met that goal or fallen short. Accountability thrives when expectations are crystal clear. In a professional environment, ask for clarified objectives, deadlines, and milestones. In personal life, articulate mutual agreements. "I'll do the laundry on Wednesdays, and you'll handle the trash on Fridays." Clarity removes the wiggle room for scapegoating. Another powerful method is owning the consequences of your actions. If you fail to complete a project on time, you might have to put in extra hours or face a reduction in your performance review. Accepting these consequences gracefully can be painful, but it reaffirms to yourself and others that you're prepared to shoulder the results of your decisions. Over time, this builds tremendous trust. When colleagues and friends see you not just talking about responsibility but living it, by handling both the rewards and setbacks, they gain confidence in you as a dependable individual. In certain cases, developing accountability might involve seeking external support. Mentors, coaches, or even a supportive friend can help you recognize patterns of deflection. They might ask direct questions like, "Is that really the whole story?" or "Could you have done something differently?" Though these questions can be uncomfortable, they're catalysts for deeper reflection. By consistently exposing yourself to such interrogation, you build the mental muscle for honest self-assessment. If you're in a position of leadership, whether it's at work, at home, or in a volunteer setting, modeling accountability is key. People often mirror what they see in authority figures. If a manager at a company freely admits, "I made the wrong call on that project," and "here's how I'll fix it," it sets a tone of openness and responsibility that can permeate the organization. Similarly, in a family context, parents who admit their mistakes teach their children that it's safe to own up to errors and learn from them. Finally, consider the emotional payoff. Owning mistakes can feel embarrassing at first, but it ultimately brings relief. You no longer have to weave elaborate tales to hide shortcomings, nor do you have to live with the anxiety of being caught in a lie or an excuse. Instead, you can direct your energy toward growing and improving. The satisfaction of resolving an issue rather than burying it can be addictive. In a good way, you become adept at turning stumbling blocks into learning experiences, and that resilience sets you apart as someone who constantly evolves. In sum, taking responsibility isn't about punishing yourself. It's about elevating yourself to a higher standard of authenticity. When you no longer waste time shifting blame, you free up mental and emotional bandwidth to focus on solutions. This shift not only improves your relationships because people sense they can trust you, but it also enhances your self-respect. There's a profound sense of peace in knowing that even when things go wrong, you have the courage to face them head-on. Before we dive into new territory, let's take a moment to recap the journey so far. In Part 1, we explored 3 interconnected habits: gossiping, passive-aggressive behavior, and an unwillingness to accept personal responsibility that subtly but steadily chip away at how people perceive us. While each habit manifests differently, they share a common thread: avoidance of direct confrontation with our own flaws, emotions, or responsibilities. Gossip deflects attention from our own shortcomings. Passive aggression masks our true feelings behind veiled hostility, and blame shifting helps us dodge the discomfort of admitting mistakes. Now we're ready to turn our attention to 3 more habits, each of which can be equally damaging to our reputations and relationships. First up is poor hygiene, a topic that might make some people squirm but which remains undeniably crucial. It goes beyond simple vanity. Hygiene is a foundational aspect of self-respect and social courtesy. Up next is constant complaining, the draining habit that clouds every room with negativity. Finally, we'll explore the pervasive issue of chronic lateness, a behavior that sends an unspoken message that your time is more valuable than everyone else's. As we progress, remember that these habits are not always blatant. Some might appear only under stress, or they could be tied to deeper struggles like mental health issues or unresolved personal trauma. For example, someone battling depression might neglect hygiene not out of deliberate disregard, but because their mental state makes self-care extraordinarily difficult. Similarly, a person who constantly complains might be crying out for help, or a chronically late individual might be overwhelmed by anxiety or poor time management skills rooted in ADHD or other factors. Recognizing these nuances is important. We can't fix what we don't understand, and empathy goes a long way in helping others, and ourselves, make real changes. Nonetheless, empathy doesn't negate the real-world consequences of these behaviors. If you show up to an office reeking of body odor daily, coworkers are bound to notice and potentially avoid you. If you whine about every minor inconvenience, friends might stop inviting you to social outings for fear of your negativity hijacking the vibe. And if you're always the last person to arrive, whether it's to meetings, dates, or parties, people will assume you're self-centered or disorganized. These assumptions, fair or not, can become major obstacles in both personal growth and relationship building. Each habit signals something deeper about how you perceive and value yourself and others. Sometimes these signals are conscious, but more often, they're not. This second part of the article aims to bring those signals into the spotlight. By understanding the layers behind each behavior, you gain the clarity and motivation to take meaningful action. The goal is not about sculpting ourselves into bland, one-size-fits-all models of propriety. Rather, it's about cultivating practices that help us nurture respect both for ourselves and for the people who share our life journey. So, let's begin with the seemingly basic, yet often overlooked realm of personal hygiene. While it might sound mundane, hygiene ties deeply into how we feel about ourselves and how others perceive us. A conversation about soap and deodorant may not be glamorous, but it speaks volumes about self-care, mental well-being, and respect for communal spaces. By examining why we sometimes let this slide and how it affects others, we can better grasp the importance of maintaining healthy hygiene habits. It's astonishing how often personal hygiene gets brushed aside as a trivial matter until someone catches a whiff of pungent body odor or notices unkempt hair that hasn't seen shampoo in days. Let's address the elephant in the room. Hygiene is about more than just being clean. It's a statement about self-respect, discipline, and consideration for the people around you. Consider how you react when you're near someone who appears disheveled or smells unpleasant. It's hard not to form an immediate, often negative impression. Despite the obvious social repercussions, lapses in hygiene can happen to anyone. Maybe you're going through a rough patch, be it physically, mentally, or emotionally, and showering or brushing your teeth feels like an overwhelming task. Depression and chronic stress can sap the motivation to perform even basic self-care rituals. Alternatively, some individuals might have grown up in environments where hygiene wasn't consistently emphasized, and they simply never developed strong routines. The ripple effects of neglecting hygiene, however, go beyond personal comfort. In professional settings, poor hygiene can be a deal breaker. Imagine walking into a job interview with unbrushed hair, wrinkled clothes, and an unpleasant odor. Even if you're the most qualified candidate on paper, the interviewer may question your reliability or professionalism based on these external cues. It might seem superficial, but hiring managers often note that visible self-neglect can be a sign of deeper organizational or time management issues. This extends to team dynamics too. Employees who consistently arrive in an unclean state can unintentionally distract coworkers or clients, creating tension and discomfort. Friendships and romantic relationships can also suffer. People might be hesitant to be in close quarters with someone who appears not to bathe or brush their teeth regularly. It can affect intimacy, whether physical or emotional, as partners may feel uncomfortable addressing the issue. Many couples find themselves in awkward conversations about personal cleanliness, which can lead to resentment if not handled with empathy and directness. There's a psychological component too. Keeping up with hygiene routines can boost self-esteem. Something as simple as a warm shower, clean clothes, and a pleasant fragrance can shift your mood and self-perception in profound ways. On tough days, the act of cleaning yourself can feel like a small but significant victory, a statement that you value your own well-being enough to invest the time and energy required for basic self-care. Another aspect is the communal respect it shows. When you maintain good hygiene, you're signaling that you respect shared spaces, work environments, public transport, gyms, and that you understand your presence affects others. It's an implicit social contract. I will take care of my own cleanliness so that we can comfortably coexist. Failing to meet this standard can create an invisible barrier between you and others, where they might keep conversations or interactions brief to avoid discomfort. Recognizing the importance of hygiene doesn't mean you must always look like you stepped out of a fashion magazine. Everyone has off days and casual days. The key is consistency. Regularly bathing, wearing clean clothes, brushing your teeth, and using deodorant or antiperspirant can drastically improve how people perceive you, even if your outfit is plain or you're not wearing makeup. It's about ensuring you're not off-putting or distracting to those around you in ways that undermine your social or professional goals. Ultimately, taking care of your personal hygiene is a foundational act of self-care. It's a baseline for other healthy habits, because if you can tackle something as simple as a daily shower and fresh attire, you're more likely to be proactive in other areas of your life. On the flip side, letting this slide can create a snowball effect of lowered self-esteem and diminished social opportunities. That's why addressing hygiene is the first step towards a broader sense of personal responsibility and social awareness. Improving hygiene isn't rocket science, but it does require deliberate action and, in some cases, emotional support. If you find yourself slipping, start by revisiting the basics: daily showers, regular use of deodorant, brushing and flossing teeth at least twice a day, and wearing clean clothes. It can help to establish a routine. For instance, pick a time each morning or evening for a quick shower so it becomes a non-negotiable part of your schedule, much like eating meals. Sticking to a set routine makes hygiene less of a decision and more of a habit. Mental health concerns can complicate matters. If depression, anxiety, or another condition makes self-care feel insurmountable, seek professional help. Therapists and counselors are trained to offer strategies for managing day-to-day tasks when mental energy is low. Sometimes medication or a structured treatment plan is necessary to help you find the motivation to perform even the simplest tasks. If you suspect you might be dealing with an underlying mental health issue, reaching out for help can be a life-changing step. For those who simply never learned proper hygiene habits, the fix can be as straightforward as education. Watch tutorials or read articles that break down an effective routine. You might scoff at needing a guide to showering or brushing your teeth, but these resources can offer surprising insights, like the recommended water temperature for healthier skin, or the types of toothpastes that address specific dental issues. Little changes like using a mild exfoliant once a week or switching to a toothbrush that's better suited to your gum sensitivity can make hygiene more comfortable and in turn more consistent. Social accountability can also work wonders. If you have a friend or family member who struggles with hygiene, approach the subject sensitively. Avoid making them feel attacked. A gentle, "Hey, I've noticed you've seemed a bit off. Are you okay?" can open doors to candid conversation about stress or mental health challenges. In a workplace, HR departments sometimes provide resources for employee well-being, which can be a less confrontational way to bring up the topic. Regardless of the environment, empathy is key. People are more likely to respond positively when they sense genuine concern rather than ridicule. Technology offers support as well. Smartphone apps can remind you when it's time to drink water, wash your hair, or trim your nails. While this may seem excessive to someone who already has a robust routine, it can be extremely beneficial for anyone struggling to keep track, particularly those with mental health or attention challenges. Gradually, these reminders can shift from external notifications to ingrained habits. Beyond your own actions, consider how your environment either supports or undermines good hygiene. If your bathroom is cluttered, it might feel unwelcoming and discourage you from spending time on self-care. Simple organizational changes, like having a designated shelf for hygiene essentials, good lighting, and a pleasant-smelling soap or shower gel, can make the process more inviting. The same logic applies to laundry. If your clothes hamper overflows or your closet is disorganized, it becomes more of a chore to locate clean clothes. Setting aside time each week to do laundry and keep your space tidy removes small hurdles that could otherwise derail you. Ultimately, while hygiene might appear trivial compared to larger life issues like career development or emotional well-being, it's deeply intertwined with both. Feeling clean can boost your confidence, which can ripple into job interviews, social interactions, and even your own sense of self-worth. Conversely, neglecting hygiene can create a cycle of avoidance and shame that impacts your ability to function optimally in multiple arenas of life. By committing to cleanliness, you're not just doing a service to those around you, you're laying a foundational brick in the structure of your own well-being. Now that we've tackled hygiene, let's turn to another subtle yet powerful habit: constant complaining. We've all met someone who can't seem to find anything positive to say. The weather is always too hot or too cold, the boss is always unfair, the coffee tastes terrible, and the traffic is unbearable. While an occasional gripe is normal, after all, life can be frustrating, relentless complaining not only brings down your mood, but also casts a shadow on everyone around you. Why do people complain so much, even when it's counterproductive? Often, complaining serves as a quick emotional release. It lets you vent frustrations without actually addressing the root cause. There's a fleeting sense of validation when someone nods sympathetically, but these quick fixes are deceptive. Without seeking constructive solutions, complaining becomes a habit that shapes your worldview into an unending series of irritations. The more you complain, the more your brain is wired to notice negative events, ignoring or downplaying positive experiences. Biologically, our brains are primed to detect threats. This is a survival mechanism passed down through millennia. In modern society, actual threats, like predators, are scarce, but the negativity bias still lingers. Minor inconveniences or day-to-day annoyances become magnified under this bias, leading to spirals of dissatisfaction. Combine that with a social media culture that often amplifies outrage and complaints, and you have a perfect recipe for chronic whining. For the chronic complainer, the habit can be isolating. Friends and family grow weary of the constant negativity, and colleagues might avoid initiating conversation with someone who always has a fresh rant. Ironically, many chronic complainers feel misunderstood or lonely, not realizing that their habit of focusing solely on problems pushes people away. Additionally, if you're perceived as the perpetual naysayer at work, you might be overlooked for promotions or team projects because managers prefer positive energy and solution-oriented thinkers. It's important to differentiate between legitimate concerns and chronic complaining. Constructive criticism and the desire to address systemic issues at work or in society can be healthy. The key difference is action versus passive lamentation. If you're complaining about an unfair office policy but also actively seeking ways to address it, maybe by speaking to management or proposing solutions, that's not chronic complaining, that's advocacy or problem solving. Chronic complaining, on the other hand, is a cycle of negativity without movement toward solutions. At its core, this habit often masks deeper feelings of powerlessness or dissatisfaction. When someone complains incessantly about mundane issues like slow internet or a missed bus, it might be a sign they feel fundamentally stuck in other areas of their life. By voicing smaller, more manageable complaints, they temporarily divert attention from more significant worries that appear insurmountable. Unfortunately, this constant focus on the negative only compounds the sense of helplessness. Overcoming the habit of constant complaining usually begins with awareness. You might start by noticing how frequently complaints arise in your day-to-day conversations or internal monologue. For instance, keep a small notebook or use a phone app to tally each time you catch yourself voicing a negative remark. The numbers might surprise you. Once you have this baseline, you can take steps to reduce it, whether by challenging negative thoughts or channeling your frustrations into actionable tasks. Transitioning away from frequent complaining doesn't mean forcing yourself to be unrealistically cheery. It's about achieving a balanced perspective. Life has both ups and downs. By developing the self-awareness to acknowledge negative events without magnifying them, you open mental space for gratitude and proactive problem-solving. The payoff is huge: a lighter emotional load, improved relationships, and a reputation as someone who can weather life's challenges without succumbing to perpetual gloom. If you've recognized that your complaints are more frequent than you'd like, take heart. There are tangible steps you can take to reverse the tide of negativity. One of the most effective is practicing gratitude. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine problems, but rather balancing them with an intentional focus on what's going right. Each morning or before bed, jot down 3 things you're thankful for. They can be as simple as enjoying a good meal or feeling a cool breeze on a hot day. Consistently doing this helps recalibrate your mental lens to see positives alongside negatives. Another helpful practice is a complaint fast. Challenge yourself to go a certain number of days, maybe a week, without voicing any complaints. When you catch yourself about to complain, pause and consider if it's solvable. If it is, aim to phrase it in a solution-frameworked way. For example, instead of saying, "This office printer is always broken," try, "This printer seems to jam frequently. Maybe we can schedule a maintenance check or consider replacing it." By reframing the complaint as a request or suggestion, you shift from passive negativity to proactive problem solving. Mindful self-checks can also be useful. Whenever a complaint pops into your mind, ask yourself, "Is this something I can change?" If yes, brainstorm or take immediate steps toward a solution. If not, practice letting it go. Rehashing a situation that can't be altered, like the weather, is pointless unless you're planning to move to a different climate or invest in a better umbrella. This approach instills a sense of agency, reminding you that you can choose how you respond to life's imperfections. For those with an empathetic bent, it can be tempting to bond with others over mutual complaints. It's common to see coworkers bonding over how awful everything is at the office. While mutual venting can foster temporary camaraderie, it often leads to a cycle of negativity that overshadows creativity and solutions. If you notice these patterns, try steering the conversation toward constructive avenues. Suggest brainstorming sessions to tackle the issues you're both complaining about. This keeps the social bond but shifts it toward collaborative progress. Sometimes persistent complaining might be rooted in deeper emotional or psychological issues. Chronic dissatisfaction can be a cry for help or a manifestation of underlying anxiety or depression. If you find that you can't stop complaining despite sincere efforts, or if the negativity is severely affecting your quality of life, it may be time to speak with a therapist or counselor. Professional guidance can uncover the root causes of your discontent and equip you with coping strategies that go beyond simply not voicing complaints. It's also worth noting the effect of social media on this habit. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, or specialized forums can amplify complaining, as they offer an immediate audience for every grievance. If you're prone to negative posts or frequent rants online, try setting boundaries. Limit your time on platforms, or challenge yourself to post something positive for every complaint. Recognize that the likes and comments you receive can reinforce the behavior, creating a feedback loop of negativity. Breaking that loop might require restricting the attention you give to your own complaints, online or offline. Finally, don't forget to celebrate small victories. The process of reducing complaints is akin to building a muscle. You get stronger with consistent practice, and you might not see results overnight. When you manage to reframe a complaint or solve a problem you would have otherwise just whined about, give yourself a mental pat on the back. Over time, these small moments accumulate into a new, more balanced outlook. You'll notice that people gravitate toward you more, your relationships feel lighter, and your problem-solving skills get a significant boost. Next on the list of habits that sabotage respect is chronic lateness. Perhaps you've heard the joke that some folks must live in a different time zone, eternally 5 or 10 minutes behind schedule. While it's easy to dismiss lateness as a minor quirk, persistently showing up late sends a powerful message: my time is more important than yours. This can feel offensive or disrespectful to those who are kept waiting, even if that wasn't your intent. Why do people run late? Sometimes it's purely logistical, poor time management, or underestimating how long tasks take, but lateness can also signal deeper issues. Some individuals have a subconscious desire to avoid the anxiety of arriving first, so they stall. Others might be serial multitaskers who spread themselves too thin, leaving no buffer for unexpected delays. In some cases, it can even be a subtle form of control or rebellion, where the latecomer feels a sense of power making others wait. In a work environment, habitual lateness can stall projects, delay meetings, and disrupt team morale. Coworkers who show up on time might feel resentful, especially if the latecomer never faces consequences or offers genuine apologies. This tension erodes trust and unity, both critical elements for any high-performing team. It also impacts performance reviews and career trajectories. Managers often interpret chronic lateness as a sign of unreliability, which can limit opportunities for advancement. In personal relationships, whether romantic, familial, or friendly, lateness can breed frustration and hurt feelings. The person waiting might think, don't they care enough to show up on time? Even if you have valid reasons for being tardy, repeated incidents convey indifference. Over time, friends might stop inviting you to events, or they might tell you a start time that's 15 minutes earlier than everyone else's just to compensate. This might seem funny at first, but it underscores a genuine breakdown in trust. Changing this habit means developing respect for your future self and others. One practical technique is to always schedule a buffer. If it takes 30 minutes to drive somewhere, plan for 40 or 45. This accommodates traffic and other unexpected delays. Use calendar reminders or smartphone apps that alert you when it's time to leave. If you're prone to losing track of time while getting ready, set a timer for each stage. 15 minutes to shower, 10 minutes to dress, etc. It might feel rigid, but it's an effective way to train your mind to be punctual. Another angle is to reflect on why you're chronically late. If it's anxiety about arriving early, remind yourself that being early is often viewed positively. You can use the extra time to check emails, read a book, or mentally prepare for the meeting. If the problem is overscheduling, practice saying no to commitments you can't realistically fulfill. And if lateness is a subtle form of defiance, ask yourself who you're rebelling against and why. Digging into those feelings can help you break the cycle. Finally, remember that punctuality is a form of politeness. It tells others that their time is valuable, which fosters mutual respect. Strive to be the person who arrives a minute or two early, prepared and calm, rather than the frazzled latecomer rushing in with apologies. Over time, people will notice your shift in behavior and appreciate the difference. This can lead to stronger work relationships, deeper friendships, and a sense of personal pride in honoring your commitments. If you're serious about overcoming chronic lateness, the first step is an honest time audit. For a week or two, note down everything you do and how long it takes. Showering, commuting, eating meals, running errands, responding to emails. You may realize you've been underestimating or overestimating certain activities. Armed with this data, you can create a more realistic daily or weekly schedule, incorporate buffer zones between tasks, so that if you run late on one, you don't derail your entire day. Next, reframe punctuality as a positive habit rather than a burdensome chore. Instead of viewing it as "I have to be there on time," see it as "I choose to respect others by being prompt." That shift in mindset can make a big difference. You become more intentional about how you allocate your minutes and more aware of how your actions impact people around you. Open communication is also vital, especially if you've already established a reputation for being late. Let friends, family, and coworkers know that you're working on this habit. Ask them to help you by sending a quick reminder or giving you a heads up if they suspect you're falling behind. While you shouldn't rely solely on others to manage your time, having a supportive network can keep you accountable. When you do slip up, and it's bound to happen, apologize promptly and offer a genuine explanation without making excuses. For instance, "I'm sorry I'm late, I mismanaged my morning routine today, and I'm going to adjust my alarm to ensure it doesn't happen again." Over time, these sincere admissions, coupled with proactive changes, will help rebuild trust. If lateness is tied to deeper emotional or psychological challenges such as anxiety or attention deficit disorders, consider seeking professional advice. Therapists or life coaches can provide tailored strategies for time management and help you address any underlying issues that fuel your tardiness. It's not about labeling yourself as broken, but rather equipping yourself with the tools to navigate life more smoothly. Finally, try celebrating the days you manage to be consistently punctual. Positive reinforcement works wonders. Treat yourself to something you enjoy, a favorite snack, a quick break, or a short walk outside, when you hit your targets for a week. Over time, the combination of a well-structured routine, open communication, and self-reward can transform even the most habitual latecomer into a model of timeliness. Remember, punctuality is about more than just showing up on time. It's a broader indication of reliability, respect, and organization, qualities that benefit every area of your life, from your professional image to your personal relationships. Being punctual gives you a competitive edge in a society where time is often our most valuable currency. Welcome to Part 3 of our expanded exploration into the habits that can harm your reputation and distance you from meaningful connections. So far, we've dissected 6 major pitfalls: gossiping, passive aggression, failing to take responsibility, poor hygiene, constant complaining, and chronic lateness. Each one, in its own way, signals to others that interacting with you might be more trouble than it's worth. whether due to negativity, disrespect for boundaries, or lack of self-care. Now we arrive at the seventh and final habit in this series, playing the victim. This behavior often runs deeper than the previous ones because it reflects a core mindset about how you see the world and your place in it. People who play the victim aren't simply having a bad day or missing a deadline. They often perceive themselves as chronically targeted or unlucky in ways that feel beyond their control. Consequently, they see their own role in negative outcomes as minimal or non-existent, attributing misfortune primarily to external factors or the actions of others. On the surface, playing the victim might appear harmless or even sympathetic. After all, who doesn't want to support someone who claims life has dealt them a difficult hand? However, prolonged victim mentality can become exhausting for friends, family, and coworkers. It can also be self-destructive, since seeing yourself as perpetually powerless robs you of the motivation and confidence needed for personal growth. Like the other habits, victimhood can arise for various reasons. Some people genuinely face difficult circumstances, financial hardships, dysfunctional family dynamics, or health issues that leave them feeling vulnerable. Others learn this mindset early in life, possibly through caregivers who modeled victim behavior themselves. Regardless of how it starts, continuing to play the victim into adulthood can lead to strained relationships and stalled progress in multiple areas, from career advancement to emotional well-being. In the next sections, we'll explore what it means to play the victim, how it affects both you and those around you, and practical steps to break free from this disempowering cycle. We'll also integrate the broader lessons from the first two parts, showing how all 7 habits share underlying themes of accountability, respect, and empathy. By understanding these habits as part of a larger pattern, you can better strategize how to shift away from them and toward healthier, more constructive behavior. But before diving into the nuts and bolts of victim mentality, let's remind ourselves that life is rarely black and white. Sometimes bad things do happen that are beyond our control, and acknowledging genuine hardship is important. The issue arises when legitimate grief or frustration morphs into a persistent refusal to see our own agency. Striking the right balance between self-compassion and self-empowerment is key. With this in mind, let's delve into the world of victimhood and discover pathways to self-liberation. At its core, playing the victim involves consistently interpreting life events through a lens of personal oppression or misfortune. This can manifest in phrases like, "Nothing ever goes my way," "Everyone is always out to get me," or "I can't win no matter how hard I try." People in victim mode often struggle to acknowledge their role in negative experiences. If they fail a test, it's because the teacher hates them. If they lose a job, they declare it was due to the boss's bias, never considering their own performance or punctuality issues. Identifying the root cause of a victim mentality typically involves a combination of introspection and, in some cases, professional support. Early life experiences can set the stage. Children who grow up in chaotic or abusive environments may develop a worldview where they truly feel powerless. In such cases, victim behavior can be a coping mechanism, an attempt to protect oneself from further disappointment. Yet, what starts as a defense mechanism in childhood can become a limiting worldview in adulthood. Another factor can be the secondary gains associated with victimhood. While being seen as a victim might be painful, it also can yield empathy, attention, and reduced expectations from others. For instance, coworkers might tiptoe around your projects, or friends might avoid confronting you because they view you as fragile. This unspoken benefit of receiving sympathy can, ironically, incentivize some people to remain in a victim role. Yet, the social costs are often steep. Over time, family and friends may grow tired of the constant negativity and refusal to take control of one's life. They might feel helpless, unsure how to offer real support that goes beyond listening to repeated laments. In professional contexts, victim behavior can stall career progress. Managers prefer solution-driven employees who tackle obstacles head-on. If you're constantly attributing your struggles to external forces, your boss may not see you as reliable or proactive. The psychological cost is also considerable. Continuously seeing oneself as a victim can feed anxiety, depression, or low self-esteem. It reinforces a narrative that you are incapable of influencing your destiny, creating a cycle where you expect failure and inadvertently make choices that bring it about. For example, if you believe you'll never pass an important test because the system is rigged, you might study less diligently, thus fulfilling the prophecy of failure. It's also crucial to recognize the difference between true victimhood, such as experiencing trauma, abuse, or discrimination, and adopting a victim mindset in less dire situations. People who have endured genuine adversity often benefit from counseling, support groups, and understanding from their community. However, if every setback in your life becomes framed as the world conspiring against you, that's a sign of a deeper, more entrenched mindset issue. Breaking out of victim mentality starts with honesty. Ask yourself if you routinely blame external circumstances for personal failings, or if you resent people who seem to have more control over their lives. Reflect on whether you find short-term solace in sympathy from others, rather than seeking lasting solutions. This process can be uncomfortable, but discomfort is often the precursor to transformative growth. Recognizing the habit is the vital first step toward reclaiming your agency. When someone chronically adopts the victim role, it's not just their own mindset at stake. Their relationships inevitably suffer. Friends, coworkers, and family may feel compelled to offer constant reassurance or rescue attempts. For a while, they might willingly do so out of love or loyalty, but they can also become fatigued. Over time, they realize their efforts never seem to result in real change, leading to frustration and emotional distance. This dynamic can take many forms. In romantic relationships, for example, a victim-oriented individual might continually accuse their partner of not doing enough to save them from the difficulties of life. Or they might overinterpret normal disagreements as personal attacks, saying things like, "Why are you always picking on me?" Such perceptions strain the partnership, as the other person feels cast in the role of perpetual villain or savior, neither of which fosters a balanced connection. In workplace settings, colleagues might tread lightly around the victim. This might include avoiding collaboration because they fear the victim will complain, or sabotage projects by insisting everything is stacked against them. Alternatively, they might overcompensate by doing extra work, hoping to shield the victim from potential failings. This environment creates resentment, as individuals who carry the extra burden start to feel exploited. The victim, meanwhile, remains stuck in a cycle of dependence and powerlessness. Victim mentality also hampers personal growth. If you're always attributing failures to external forces, you miss opportunities to learn from mistakes or adapt strategies. Persistence, resilience, and creativity often arise from taking ownership of one's challenges. When you believe the universe is against you, you might never develop the problem-solving skills needed to navigate life effectively. This leaves you unprepared for future hurdles, perpetuating a sense of helplessness. Moreover, playing the victim can cultivate unhealthy coping mechanisms. If someone feels powerless, they might turn to substance abuse, overeating, or self-isolation as a means of escape. They may rationalize these behaviors by saying, "What's the point of trying to stay healthy or motivated if the world won't give me a fair chance?" Such rationalizations only deepen the sense of entrapment and prevent proactive efforts toward wellness or skill building. Interestingly, those who have a victim mentality sometimes develop surprising forms of manipulation. They might unconsciously guilt-trip others into offering help, or they might withdraw affection if they feel they aren't receiving enough sympathy. The logic is, if you don't see how much I'm suffering, I'll show you by making you suffer too. Through my withdrawal of warmth or my consistent negative energy, this creates a toxic cycle where both parties feel misunderstood and drained. The flip side is that once you break free from victim thinking, you often experience a surge in personal empowerment. You realize that while you can't control everything that happens, you can control your responses. This perspective shift can greatly enhance problem-solving abilities, boost confidence, and improve relationships. Instead of seeking pity or placing blame, you become motivated to find solutions, ask for the right kind of help, and grow through adversity. It's a transformative switch from passivity to active engagement with life's challenges. Changing a victim mindset is no small feat, especially if it's deeply ingrained. However, it's entirely achievable with the right approach. A powerful first step is cognitive reframing. When you find yourself thinking, "Why is this happening to me?" swap it with, "What can I learn or do about this situation?" This shift might sound simple, but it rewires the brain to focus on action rather than defeat. Over time, you'll start seeking opportunities and solutions instead of dwelling on your perceived misfortunes. Another effective tool is journaling, especially in a structured format. Divide a page into 2 columns. On the left, write down the event that triggered victim feelings, perhaps an argument with a friend or a setback at work. On the right, list all possible actions you could take or lessons you could learn. Even if some solutions seem far-fetched or silly, write them down. The act of brainstorming reaffirms that you have more agency than you might initially believe. Gratitude exercises are also invaluable, much like in the case of curbing chronic complaining. When you're entrenched in victimhood, you're hyper-attuned to what's wrong in your life. Actively recognizing what's good, a supportive friend, a skill you've mastered, or simple comforts can offer a more balanced view. This doesn't negate genuine problems. It merely prevents them from overshadowing every positive aspect of your existence. For deeper shifts, consider therapy or coaching. A trained professional can help identify the root causes of victim mentality, such as unresolved trauma or limiting beliefs. They can also provide tailored strategies to challenge those beliefs and replace them with healthier narratives. Group therapy or support groups can be particularly illuminating. Hearing others share their journeys can highlight your own tendency to view yourself as uniquely burdened. In interpersonal situations, practicing assertive communication is crucial. Victims often oscillate between passive resignation and explosive outbursts of frustration. Learning to calmly but firmly articulate your needs or grievances helps you reclaim your power. For instance, instead of saying, "You always take advantage of me," try, "I feel overlooked when I'm not consulted on decisions that affect me, and I'd appreciate being included next time." This approach focuses on your feelings and desired outcomes, rather than painting yourself as a perpetual target. Finally, set incremental goals and track your progress. For each instance where you might normally feel victimized, strive to take a small action, whether it's speaking up or brainstorming possible solutions. Reward yourself for these steps. Positive reinforcement, even in small doses, can gradually rebuild self-confidence. Over time, these wins accumulate into a strong case against the narrative that you're powerless. Shifting from victim to victor isn't about denying that hard things happen. Rather, it's about acknowledging adversity without letting it define you. Embrace the idea that while you can't control every outcome, you can influence how you handle them. This empowered stance paves the way for improved self-esteem, healthier relationships, and a sense of purpose grounded in resilience rather than resignation. Now that we've examined all 7 habits, gossiping, passive aggression, avoiding responsibility, poor hygiene, chronic complaining, habitual lateness, and playing the victim, it's useful to see how they intersect. At first glance, these behaviors might seem unrelated, What does personal hygiene have to do with gossip? Or how does complaining link to playing the victim? A closer look reveals two recurring themes: avoidance and accountability. Many of these habits, such as gossiping and passive aggression, allow us to avoid confronting our own issues directly. Gossip shifts the spotlight onto others, while passive aggression cloaks true emotions behind a veil of ambiguity. Blame shifting is the epitome of avoiding accountability, as is chronic lateness, where you dodge facing the root cause of time mismanagement. Even poor hygiene can sometimes be a manifestation of avoiding self-care responsibilities, and playing the victim is arguably the ultimate avoidance technique, avoiding ownership of personal power. On the flip side, the antidote to these habits almost always involves embracing accountability, whether it's admitting you spread harmful rumors, communicating grievances openly, or taking responsibility for your mental and physical well-being. Accountability is about reclaiming control over your life. Rather than living in a defensive crouch, you stand upright and say, "Yes, I have flaws, but I'm actively working on them." This stance radiates authenticity and respect, qualities that naturally draw people to you. Alongside accountability, self-awareness emerges as a critical tool. Recognizing you're gossiping before a rumor leaves your lips, catching yourself about to send a passive-aggressive text, or noting that you're making excuses for poor hygiene, all these require a certain level of mindful self-observation. The more you practice self-awareness, the easier it becomes to pivot toward healthier, more constructive actions. Another commonality is how each habit affects relationships. Humans are social beings, so trust, respect, and empathy form the backbone of our interactions. Each of these 7 habits in its own way undermines these virtues. Gossip erodes trust, passive aggression strains empathy, refusal to take responsibility or showing up late consistently disrespects others' time and effort. Playing the victim saps the mutual exchange of support, turning relationships into one-sided rescue missions. Recognizing this helps contextualize why these behaviors can have such a profound negative impact. The good news is that by addressing even one of these habits, you often see a ripple effect of positive change. For instance, if you stop gossiping, you might simultaneously become more mindful about your words in general, reducing passive-aggressive tendencies. Or, if you improve your punctuality, you might find it easier to own up to other mistakes, like missing deadlines or forgetting commitments, thus reducing blame shifting. This interconnectedness suggests a synergy. Self-improvement in one area can bolster growth in others. Ultimately, these habits are neither inevitable nor irreversible. They're learned behaviors shaped by circumstances and personal choices. That means they can be unlearned or replaced with more adaptive strategies. However, the journey takes time, humility, and, at times, external support. There might be setbacks, but each stumbling step forward is still progress if you remain committed to self-improvement. A major stumbling block in reversing these behaviors is shame. When you finally realize you've been engaging in harmful habits, maybe you spread gossip that hurt a friend or your chronic lateness cost you a promotion, it's easy to spiral into self-loathing. "I can't believe I've been so awful," you might think. While a measure of regret can motivate change, excessive shame can paralyze you, making you feel unworthy of redemption or too humiliated to face those you've hurt. Distinguishing between guilt and shame is crucial. Guilt says, "I did something bad," while shame says, "I am bad." The former focuses on specific actions, which you can change or apologize for. The latter attacks your identity, suggesting you're inherently flawed. To move forward, aim to channel guilt constructively while avoiding the trap of pervasive shame. Yes, you might have engaged in gossip, but that doesn't mean you're irredeemably malicious. It means you made a poor choice. By reframing it this way, you keep the door to growth wide open. Cultivating self-compassion is another powerful remedy for shame. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a friend. Imagine how you would respond if a close friend admitted they felt terrible about gossiping or complaining too much. You'd likely encourage them to forgive themselves and focus on making amends or improving. Offer yourself that same grace. Rather than berating yourself, set a plan to correct course. Apologizing when necessary can also dissolve shame. If your gossip harmed someone's reputation, a heartfelt apology can begin the healing process. A friend might not fully trust you right away, but demonstrating consistent effort to change can repair the relationship over time. The same goes for workplaces. If you've been passive-aggressive or chronically late, a frank admission of wrongdoing and a plan to rectify it can often salvage professional ties. In addition, it's helpful to surround yourself with supportive influences. This might mean spending less time with people who enable or encourage negative habits. For instance, if your circle thrives on gossip, gently steer conversations toward uplifting topics, or consider mingling with those who have healthier communication patterns. In a professional setting, connect with mentors who embody the qualities you wish to develop: reliability, honesty, punctuality, or a solution-oriented mindset. Finally, remember that progress isn't linear. You might drastically cut back on gossip for weeks, only to slip up once in a moment of frustration. Rather than viewing this as a total failure, treat it as a learning experience. What triggered the slip-up? How can you better handle similar situations in the future? By continually refining your strategies, you transform mistakes into stepping stones for deeper self-awareness and personal growth. The shift from shame to growth mindset fundamentally changes how you see challenges. Instead of beating yourself up over flaws, you start to view them as areas that can be honed and transformed. This approach invites curiosity. How can I better manage my time? How can I communicate more honestly? Rather than the dead end of self-condemnation. Over time, this attitude fosters resilience, empathy, and a renewed sense of purpose in both personal and professional realms. Congratulations on making it to this final paragraph of a deep dive into 7 common habits that erode respect and strain relationships. Gossiping, passive-aggressive behavior, evading responsibility, neglecting hygiene, constant complaining, chronic lateness, and playing the victim. By now it should be clear that while these habits differ in form, they share underlying themes of avoidance, lack of accountability, and diminished self-awareness. The toll they take isn't minor. They can hamper careers, isolate you from friends, and leave you feeling perpetually unsatisfied or misunderstood. Yet, the overarching message is one of hope and empowerment. Each of these habits is learned, meaning it can be unlearned. The key lies in honest self-assessment, willingness to face uncomfortable truths, and, if needed, seeking guidance, be it from therapy, mentors, or supportive peers. You hold more power than you might realize to redefine how you show up in the world. By addressing these harmful tendencies, you not only improve your own mental and emotional health, but also create stronger, more trusting bonds with those around you. Change rarely happens overnight, so start small. Pick one habit, maybe the one that resonates most strongly with your current struggles, and focus on incremental improvements. If gossip is your Achilles heel, commit to redirecting negative conversations and offering apologies when you slip up. If chronic lateness is your battle, implement time audits and celebrate each punctual arrival. Consistency is more impactful than grand, fleeting gestures. Over weeks and months, minor shifts in daily behavior accumulate into noticeable transformations in your life's trajectory. Equally important is maintaining compassion for yourself along the journey. No one is perfect, and beating yourself up for every misstep only fuels the cycle of shame that can lead you back to old habits. Recognize progress when it occurs, whether that's fewer instances of gossip, better time management, or a growing ability to take responsibility without defensiveness. These changes indicate that you're developing the self-awareness and discipline needed to become the kind of person you aspire to be. As you evolve, don't be surprised if your social landscape shifts. Some people might resist your changes, preferring the old dynamics where gossip or lateness was normalized. Others will cheer you on or even feel inspired to make changes in their own lives. Growth can sometimes create friction, but it also opens doors to deeper, more meaningful connections. In the end, the reward is authenticity. You become a person whose words and actions align, who respects both yourself and others, and who navigates life with a blend of realism and optimism. In conclusion, breaking free from these 7 habits isn't about striving for a spotless record or an unrealistic idea of perfection. It's about acknowledging the ways we undermine ourselves and deciding we can do better. It's about forging relationships based on trust rather than fear or manipulation, and living with integrity rather than regret. Though the process demands effort and vulnerability, the payoff is immense. You emerge as someone who commands respect naturally, fosters genuine bonds, and stands confidently in your own truth. So there you have it, the uncomfortable but liberating truths about the sneaky habits holding you back and the empowering strategies to finally overcome them. Whether it's stepping away from gossip, ditching that victim mindset, or mastering the art of punctuality, every small change moves you closer to becoming someone others genuinely admire and respect. The beauty of this journey is how quickly those around you start noticing, appreciating, and responding positively to your transformation. Remember, nobody gets it right overnight. Life isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up authentically, owning your actions, and striving each day to be a bit better. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which habit resonated most with you? Have you tackled any of these in your own life? Drop your experiences and insights in the comments below. Let's build a community where we grow together. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and share it with anyone who needs some straight-up wisdom and motivation today.